What if the very thing you crave the most, freedom, is the same thing that's slowly tearing you apart? We live in a time where choices are limitless, where self-expression is celebrated, and the individual is crowned king. But beneath this apparent liberation, something festers. A quiet anxiety. A hollow ache. A haunting sense that, with so many open doors, we no longer know which one leads to ourselves. You may think you're chasing freedom, but what if you're actually running from purpose? From depth? From the discomfort of truly knowing who you are beneath the noise? In the absence of direction, freedom doesn't elevate, it disorients. And the more options we have, the harder it becomes to choose anything at all. But, what if your confusion isn't failure, but a whisper from your unconscious, a cry from the parts of you that still remain unseen? Carl Jung once wrote that, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. When freedom exists without structure, without self-knowledge, it becomes unbearable. Like being dropped into an open ocean without land in sight. At first, it feels thrilling. You can swim in any direction. But soon, fatigue sets in. The water turns cold. And suddenly, you realize, direction matters. Freedom without meaning is just disconnection. Nietzsche challenged us, become who you are. But what happens when we don't know who that is? When every path seems both possible and empty? In a world obsessed with keeping options open, we become prisoners of the very choices we refuse to make. The shadow, Jung's term for the repressed self, grows stronger in this vacuum. We feel free, but we're haunted. Haunted by the dreams we never chase. By the silence we avoid. By the mirror we're afraid to face. Because to truly be free, we'd have to choose. And to choose is to lose something. That frightens us more than we admit. Psychiatrist Gabor Maté speaks of modern addiction not just as a compulsion to consume, but as a desperate attempt to fill a void of meaning, of connection, of self. We escape into distractions because freedom alone is terrifying when we haven't cultivated a why. We are free to go anywhere, but without purpose, every road feels the same. Freedom becomes a curse when it serves only to avoid pain rather than confront it. And this is the invisible pattern that rules many lives. We think we're free because we're unbound, when in truth, we're trapped in a loop of aimless wandering. Take a moment. Breathe. And ask yourself, what are you really running from? Is it fear of failure, or fear of becoming someone you can no longer recognize? You say you're undecided, figuring things out, keeping your options open. But what if those are just clever masks for a deeper paralysis? What if your hesitation isn't caution, but fear wrapped in perfectionism, fear disguised as logic? The truth is uncomfortable. Sometimes, what you call freedom is just fear in a tuxedo. Sometimes, what you call destiny is merely the repetition of an unseen trauma. That recurring pattern in your relationships, that voice in your head telling you you're not enough, that isn't fate. That's your history, looping itself in silence. Jung called it the shadow, the disowned parts of ourselves we bury because they're too painful to confront. But the shadow doesn't disappear. It leaks into our choices, our addictions, our endless scrolling, our constant search for more. Gabor Maté reminds us that addiction isn't about pleasure, it's about pain. And we're all addicted to something: validation, control, chaos, distraction. Not because we are broken, but because we are wounded. Freedom without healing is overwhelming. We end up chasing what numbs us, not what frees us. You don't fear freedom, you fear what you might find if you stop running and face yourself. The external world is not your prison. Your unexamined self is. You can change cities, partners, careers, but if you haven't met your inner child, if you haven't grieved what you lost, if you haven't made peace with who you pretend to be, you'll keep circling the same life with different costumes. True transformation begins not when you rearrange your circumstances, but when you unmask your soul. So where do we begin? Not with a 10-step plan. Not with a new identity. But with a gaze. A quiet, courageous gaze inward. The journey isn't about becoming someone else, it's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. Viktor Frankl said, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." And perhaps that's where true freedom lives, not in choices, but in consciousness. To meet your shadow is not to fear it, but to listen. To cradle the parts of you that never felt safe. To name your pain instead of performing over it. The turning point isn't when the world changes, it's when you do. When you stop looking for rescue and begin the quiet, lifelong task of reclaiming yourself. That's not easy. But it's real. And it's yours. There is no magic formula. No final answer. But there is a deeper life waiting on the other side of your honesty. The work is not about becoming perfect, but becoming whole. And wholeness comes when you allow your contradictions to breathe, when you stop running from your story and start owning it, word by word, wound by wound. Because the change doesn't happen when you blame yourself. The change begins the moment you recognize yourself. In all your mess. In all your mystery. In all your buried strength. Maybe freedom was never about escape. Maybe freedom is what rises when you finally come home to who you are. Perhaps freedom was never meant to be the absence of limits, but the presence of meaning. Real freedom is not about doing whatever you want, it's about understanding why you want it. It's about choosing, not from a place of fear or pressure, but from the quiet strength of someone who has looked within and made peace with what they found. You don't need to fix yourself, you need to face yourself. Today, as you move through the world, watch yourself. Not in judgment, but in curiosity. Notice the moments when you reach for distraction. The tightness in your chest when silence arrives. The instant urge to please, escape, avoid. These are not flaws. They are signposts. Invitations. Echoes from your shadow, asking to be seen, not silenced. So ask yourself, are you ready to stop running from yourself? Can you sit in your silence and hear what it's been trying to tell you all along? If this message resonated with you, watch the video that's about to appear on your screen. It might be exactly what your soul needed to remember today.